Welcome to another episode of Ring the Bell with the Masters of Marketocracy. Tonight, we have Glenn Brownworth joining myself, Tony Mitchell. We're going to talk about the markets, what's driving them, a few individual stocks, and we're actually going to touch on cryptocurrencies tonight, Bitcoin specifically. So, Glenn, CPI came out yesterday. It was about in line. PPI, Producer Price Index, came out today. It was a little bit hotter than expected. Yet markets are still expecting a cut in December. The sentiment really didn't change, and it's 97% expected cut in December by the Federal Reserve. Do you think they're still going to cut? How are you feeling about next year? How are you feeling about inflation?
Well, I wish I had my crystal ball. I'd be farther ahead in the market. But I was surprised they actually cut a half a point last time. So I wouldn't be surprised if they did another half point, maybe even a point. I think inflation is stable. I know it's not under control in some ways, but they've gotten the main money supply down and inflation is stable from what we perceive. It just doesn't feel like it in the in the retail sector and just buying, milk and eggs and butter. It's still there, but it could still come down more. So I think, I don't know. It's hard to say. Next year's going to be a real tough call. But I think inflation is mostly stable at this point.
Well, you kind of almost touched on definitely what the hot button was eating out is showing some of the highest inflation. So, hey, I think inflation is getting stable. Prices still seem crazy in some areas, but I agree that I think it is stabilizing. And I think maybe you're referring to total cuts, but I think we'll see a point rate cut in December. And next year is a little bit more iffier depending on the inflation reports, but I think we'll probably see at least another cut next year. Should continue to help the markets. There's just a lot of positive energy with the markets right now with President Trump coming back into the office. That leads us to the great call you had this year. Back in February, you made the call that we were going to have S&P 6,000 by the end of the year. I was questioning that call because we weren't even at 5,000 back then, and we just came off a great year. But boy, what a call. That was a great call, Glenn.
Thank you.
Wish I had my button to make that applause sound for you right now, but I'm gonna have to work on some sound effects here for the show. But what are we gonna do in 2025? What's your projection for the S&P at the end of 2025?
Man, that's a tough one. I figured this past year was pretty stable for the most part, except for chaos in politics. But I don't know, for next year, maybe 6,500. But if we get into an unnecessary trade war, then we might be bulling closer to 5,000 by next year. I hope not, because right now, this is why NAFTA was created. So we don't have this, this dysfunction between our two largest trading partners in the world. So this is really dependent on whether or not the government and the management of our country does something silly, like start a war with our two largest trading partners. If that happens, then things are going to go down,
There certainly are a lot of geopolitical tensions around the world. There's still wars going on. It is really an uncertain time, no doubt. You bring up some great points. I'm going to make a call here. You sound conservative. And certainly, as you said, some of these things can affect it. I'm going to make a call for 6,900 before the end of next year.
Ooh.
So,
okay.
6,900, which would be about a 15% increase from 6,000. We're actually a little bit above 6,000 now, yeah. But I'm going to go with 6,900 by the end of next year.
Okay.
So we'll get some of the other masters calls in here and put them out in one of the future newsletters. But there you go. Glenn's at 6,500 and I'm calling 6,900 for the end of 2025.
What's in your gut that makes you feel like we're going to do really well this coming year versus all the potential negatives that we could be? What's giving you that confidence for next
I
year?
think I think it's going to be the Trump wave of pro business coming back in.
Okay.
There's just so much pro business enthusiasm and momentum right now that I think it's going to carry the markets higher. Things are pretty good in the economy. We're cutting right now. Although that might stop, I think we'll still be okay. And so, barring any black swans or geopolitical issues, I think we can finish up at 6,900.
All right. Okay.
So that brings us to another subject. Speaking of President Trump, he is pretty big on cryptocurrencies, has a crypto czar named, and obviously Bitcoin is the big one. Since his election, it's been flying. Recently hit 100,000 for the first time. I've really been a non-believer in Bitcoin because it has no underlying, or any cryptocurrencies for that matter, it has no underlying value. However, after listening to the fact today that uh, President Trump wants to set up a crypto reserve, that made me do almost a 360, or maybe I should say a 180, and think that there is some upside to still be had in Bitcoin. Um, all the Bitcoin ETFs are still relatively new. It's easier to invest in it. But if the government is going to create a crypto reserve, I think it's still going to keep going up. What do you think about that?
Well, when they talk about a cryptocurrency reserve, is it going to be based on something like gold, or is it just another token that they use between the Federal Reserve banks?
Well, a reserve, however they use it, basically means they're going to have to buy it. If they have a reserve, that means they have to buy it and they're going to be holding it. President Trump wants to be the leader of the world in cryptocurrencies. So it's going to be interesting. Um, I hope we're not the leader of the world in tulip bulbs,
Yeah,
but
yeah, I agree with that. And the thing is, one of the things about the cryptocurrency market right now is that there is a lot to do with Russia, and they are trying to undermine the West by trying to destabilize the dollar. So if they keep promoting cryptocurrency as some sort of replacement for the American dollar, it's kind of a way of destabilizing the West. But when you look at the BRICS and what they want to do, nobody wants that because somebody would have to control it. Where everybody wants Benjamin Franklin's on pieces of green paper because it literally is a known quantity. The Federal Reserve tells everybody what they're going to do. And it's the one thing that those little magic pieces of green paper are still something that people will covet everywhere in the world. But they use cryptocurrency now to move money around in a stealthy way. So that's really what a lot of this is about. And I mean, if you want to take a shot at Bitcoin, great. I don't trade it, but I mean, using something like MicroStrategy or the Bitcoin Grayscale Trust, let them do some of the heavy lifting, fine, but I don't know if I do more than 5% of my portfolio in Bitcoin,
well, I
even with it
definitely
hitting
agree. You
100.
still have to be somewhat conservative in how much you put in because there's still a lot
Yep,
of risk in it.
absolutely.
Um, and I'm not quite ready to pull that trigger. I'm just thinking about doing a little 180 on it
Hmm.
because I don't like the fact that there's nothing really underlying it.
Yeah.
However, again, if you mentioned a good thing about the brick companies trying to get away from the dollar, President Trump also sent a warning out about that. He wants to make sure that the dollar is the international currency, and he wants to be a leader in crypto. So, what exactly does that mean? Maybe it's something different than buying Bitcoin as a reserve. Maybe he plans on creating a new coin that's tied to the dollar. It's interesting. More to come on that, but definitely I thought it was worth talking about tonight.
If there was one cryptocurrency that I've seen for the past 5 or 6 years, it's Ripple. And they've been fighting nonstop with the SEC because they believe that Ripple will be used as like an exchange currency between the banks. So, each bank in the Federal Reserve banks would actually use that instead of the normal way they actually transfer money. Back in the day, they used to literally take trucks filled with cash and drive them from bank to bank to bank, and they had $10,000 bills, and that's how they had to move money around between the banks. And we figured out a way to do it without that, and it's way safer. So it almost might be we're already the leader in crypto. It's just that replacing the way the system works now with crypto, you're the pros and cons, you're not really getting that much out of it. Maybe you're getting more fluidity in the system, but really the way the dollar works today, it's the underlying foundation for oil and for trade and everything else. So it would almost be redundant for what they need it for.
Well, you kind of lead me to the other reason that I've not been a big believer in crypto is that not only is there nothing underlying, but let's say that the US government adopts it or ties a coin to the dollar. Well, that stabilizes it. And that takes out the reason that everybody's jumping in it because they want to see the great quick growth of it. But if
Mhm.
it's stabilized, you're not going to get that great quick growth.
Exactly.
So it's,
Exactly. It's a
you
chicken or
know,
the egg. What they think
it's
is going
just
to make it improve is actually the thing that would make it be just as stable as just investing in the dollar. So
yeah,
if everything is pegged to the dollar, then why don't you just go into the dollar
right,
instead of the thing that's not pegged to really
exactly.
anything?
So again, it raises my eyebrows, but I don't know if I'm ready to pull the trigger because I almost think that the next big market crash could be caused because of cryptocurrencies.
It's
So,
possible.
but
In
speaking
20,
of China, you brought up the BRICS. Of course, China is the C in BRICS. And of course, one of the big topics as President Trump is getting ready to take the oath and go back into office are the tariffs that he's pledging. So, what do you think about China these days? They've been back and forth with the incentives that they're talking about putting out there. Uh, we get uh, we get great moves up and then pullbacks because of their talk about incentives that haven't really totally materialized. We recently had some more talk and some new incentives announced. Chinese stocks moved up, then they pulled back. Are you buying anything that's China based right now? How are you feeling about China in the future here?
well, I I used to have one or two companies from China, but I find that there are plenty of companies here in the West that I don't have to worry about too much, especially when it comes to their bookkeeping and the other issues like dealing with trade wars or potential tariff issues. Um, I would actually try to probably stay away from China at this point because even we are dependent on China and they're dependent on us. They need world trade. They need phosphorus to grow rice. They need the chips to make their country work. The thing is, they're doing now is that they've built so much capacity, especially with solar panels and cars and batteries, that they've built enough for twice as many humans as could actually support it. And what we're really afraid of is that they're going to try to dump at scale. However, the American car companies, if they can't build a $20,000 electric car that works, it won't make any difference. People would just go to Mexico or Canada to buy cars at this point. And we're too tied together at this point for this kind of issue. We have issues, but if we really have a giant war with China over something like this, we buy a lot of stuff at Walmart and Amazon, and it's going to make everything cost more. So
It
I would,
is going to be interesting to see what
yeah,
actually happens with the tariffs. We're definitely in a negotiation period right now. Um, I'm not heavy into much Chinese stocks, and the only ones I am right now and would be considering it would be something like the KWeb or Alibaba. Um, it could be a good time to jump into those, but it's really like a 50-50 right now.
yeah.
I think that they're so low though that the reward is higher than the risk at
Mm.
this point in time. So
Where
good to
where
get.
has Jack Ma been? He disappeared. The government took him
Yeah, but
away,
he's he's
and
shown he's shown back up. He's been around, just
yeah,
not as public because he's not leading Alibaba anymore, but he's been back around.
yeah.
So last question today, Glenn. If you had to buy one stock today, what would it be and why?
I think I would probably tell people to put a little bit of money into Adobe today, because yesterday they got pounded by almost 13%, and they had phenomenal numbers. Phenomenal numbers. They actually made 7.9 billion in actual cash profit, and they were down close to 13% yesterday. You know, I hate to say the word, but they are technically they're almost a monopoly. They are a monopoly in graphic design. There are other tools out there, but everybody uses Photoshop and, and Premiere and, all these different tools. If you want that stuff, it's Adobe or nobody.
I think that could be a good call. I was listening to the reports on Adobe today, and I do think that it's a bit overdone. I'm going to take a deeper look at it myself. And I'm going to give you one today is Uber, which has also been kind of beat up recently because of the fears of autonomous driving and Tesla owning it is the fear, and Waymo. But I think that Uber will play a part in it. I think Uber's a great company. They are down probably about 30% from their recent highs, and I think it's way overdone. I think that Uber's we'll see them back at those highs in probably 2025. So that's a nice. From here, it's about a 50% gain to get back to their highs of this that they had this past 52 weeks. So
Okay. Well, why have
there's
they gone? Why have they gone down so far since that time?
the fear of Elon Musk being involved with Trump and that he might,
Oh,
be
okay.
a little bit more favored with
Yeah.
his Tesla car company, and that Tesla, would be leading the autonomous driving, and it'll hurt Uber and take business away from Uber. But I think Uber has a lot of great things going besides, the autonomous driving. They're already into that a little bit themselves,
Yeah.
but they've got Uber Eats, they've got Uber Freight. I think great company doing a lot of great things, and it's over. The correction is overdone in Uber right now. So
Okay.
again, just to get back to their highs is almost a 50% gain from here, which I think we could see in 2025. So,
All right.
well, hey, I want to remind everybody listening in, you can learn more about our portfolios and our master investors at marketocracymasters.com. You can learn more about investing in the markets in general at marketocracy.io. And you can also get all the links to our podcasts and our newsletters and sign up to our newsletters at marketocracy.io. So we hope you do that. Thanks for tuning in. Thank you, Glenn Brownworth, and we will talk to you all again soon.